I care about this world and this generation, and perhaps too much at times. I don't like to grieve, I don't like to be sad, and I don't like to even seem serious or like, oh my gosh, there's these ideas and I need to tell you and try to get you to be convinced of certain things or think like me or whatever. But actually, what I'm trying to share with people is their very humanity, what could be lost. And so often do I want to have fun, do I want to do things, but I have that feeling inside me that when I am having fun, I have this moral obligation to do something greater, something that tells me I can't have fun because something needs to be addressed that's actually keeping us from having fun. It's something that hurts me in a way because I can't have fun knowing that there's an evil present that people are not addressing, everyday people and most people. And it's crazy because people don't look into it, even if it's mentioned, let alone have the conversation about it. And when you're one of the few who recognize it, and you want to bring it to the world because you recognize the whole world needs that knowledge, you may not know how. And in addition to that, it's like, how are you supposed to bring that up, especially to a younger generation, which, wants to be distracted, wants to have fun, and I want to be among them. But when you see these truths, it's almost impossible to look away. You see how powerful they are, how they can change people's lives, how they can heal people. And so, I go making some videos all day, all night, sometimes till very, very late in the day, or early in the morning. And I'm working my butt off, and that can hurt my health too in many ways. Although I do yoga, I do a lot of self-reflection, I keep myself intact, I eat healthy, I do my best. But the point is that there is such an understanding that the world doesn't know, and that's the belief called statism, this underlying belief in authority, that an individual should suppress their conscience or their understanding of right and wrong just to follow orders. And this alone is the most dangerous belief system in the entire world. And it sounds simple on the surface because it is simple, but yet it's simple for somebody to also excuse it and say, well, wait, we need government, we can't live without it. In the same way from the 1800s, somebody would say, well, yeah, slavery is wrong, but we need slavery. It's a necessary evil, but it's evil. So why is it necessary? It's a simple contradiction that people live with, and they don't understand it because they never evaluated it or gave it the chance to realize that nature never did wrong to you. And this is why I say nature is the answer. And you look at Taoism, it's one of the oldest texts that ever described this whole notion of just live and let things be. And you can claim that nobody lives by that, but I do. There's individuals who care about other human beings and other lives, who sit back and constantly question, am I doing something wrong? Who look at the world around them and say, wait, we should pay attention to the food, to the information, to everything we're doing, because it's all important. It makes us who we are. It helps create a better world if we want a better world. But to talk to people about these ideas and to share with them, like I said, if they even investigate at all or look into it any one bit, they would find it being very essential. Talking with people, finding out from order followers themselves, people in the army who have all this trauma, going to war, fighting people they don't know, police giving out tickets for victimless crimes, putting people in jail, over 90% of the people in the jailing system, victimless, people that could be repaired but end up getting even worse in that system, end up repeating their crimes, traumas, perpetuating traumas, and people who are evil, naturally seeking positions of power. But we should just ignore all of that and just put some new law or new politician in office? I mean, there's this underlying psychology, and it happens at a very young age. It happens in the school system that teaches you to just follow orders. But when do we ever say that following our conscience and what we know to be right and wrong and teaching morality is actually more important? Is it not more important? Look at World War II. Do you want to repeat history? I don't. And so just saying these things can create unintended conflict, and then it hurts me more because I don't want to be in conflict with my fellow man. I don't want to work day in and day out for something that everybody should know intuitively, and most people do know, and then they just excuse it in the case of their belief system that they were trained and indoctrinated into. I look at the youth, I say, man, I want them to continue having fun. I want to keep their innocence and letting them do and live their lives and roaming freely. I want them to keep that. But everything that you love in this life will go away if you ignore this warning message, essentially, or just me saying that there's this belief system that is going unaddressed. But then somebody might look at that and be like, well, you sound kind of religious. You're saying if you think this, you have to think this. And I'm not telling you to think of anything. I'm telling you, whatever you do think, don't impose it on others with violence. Don't ever make violence justified. Don't allow violence to grow. Because the belief in authority does all those things. It actually allows violence to grow. It legitimizes violence if done in the name of authority. It creates a system that allows evil people to gain power and somehow rule over and decide the fate for millions of lives simply with the pen and paper. It's an artificial reality because it's completely man-made, and it never works because it's never timeless, and it's all based on opinion. And it's not universal either. So you have these different countries and diplomats of certain authorities having to do certain things, and we believe in all these imaginary titles and positions. But that yet doesn't concern us. We worry about artificial foods and fake foods and eating healthy, but yet we don't worry about fake people and fake positions of power and fake systems of control. When in reality, you control yourself, and we can empower individuals to control themselves and therefore be ruled by no one, just as the abolitionists did in America for ending chattel slavery. Again, in the 1800s, I used them as inspiration because they did something, and they did it without politics because they recognized politics couldn't do it. That was changing the hearts and minds of the masses to realize that slavery was wrong. But slavery still exists because you're forced to obey under a system that you never even consented to. You're born into a system, having to sign birth certificates, having to pay taxes, your money's being stolen from you, arbitrarily decided on their whim, on their opinion, and if you don't, you're going to be caged, thrown in a cage, even though it's your own money. It doesn't make any sense. Or a substance that you choose to put in your own body. It's your own body. It doesn't make any sense. And then some people will say, well, what if we just cut out taxation? What if we just do this? If government were voluntary, it wouldn't be government. If government didn't have a method of bringing income to itself, stealing from others for its own pockets, and then providing to others, acting like it's a victor, it would not be government. This is how it operates. It deceives people. It tricks people into thinking that it's natural or necessary or moral. And so the lightest thing that I would ever ask of anybody in this world, especially around my age or in this generation, is to just listen and care for the world around them and care for all people. And if they want, have a conversation with me. I'm open to it. I am not close to it. I care for everybody. I do think this is right, what I'm saying, and I don't want you to agree with me. All I want you to agree with me is that violence is wrong, which you already agree with. So all I'm saying is that you are not living by your own principles of what you yourself already believe in. So it's nothing new. I'm not introducing anything new. In fact, nature and truth has already existed. It's already here. And we simply must understand it and align our lives to it, just as these natural foods and these healthy foods have always been here, and we just have to recognize, wow, we can use them to our benefit, and look at all the ways we can heal the human body. It's been known for thousands of years. How come our ancients knew this? How come they were so wise and they told us all these things? You know, do we ever question if we're contradicting a lot of their wisdom, or how a lot of wise sages never got the attention, the light of day, or how their messages never really came to fruition? Look at the golden rule, do unto others what you would have done unto you. Are people really living by that, especially in politics, when the whole idea of politics is deciding that you have the idea of how everything should work in the world, and that therefore you should decide for everyone else how everything should work, whether they like it or not? It's not really fair. If you put yourself in their shoes, they want a different world from you. But if you can both agree that violence is wrong, then how about you both live your own lives and simply let a voluntary world manifest? A world without government, but it's a world without statism, more particularly, because government doesn't exist. It's just a title, an idea. You can't say it's a building or it's a person. It's the belief system behind it, statism, the belief in authority, which actually constitutes government. The idea of rulers, not rules, because rules always exist. You walk into my house, you walk into my business, there's property rules. I own the shoe, it's because I worked for it and I paid for it. Most people understand that. It's the idea of rulers that makes it complicated. The idea that rules must come from rulers. But there's rules naturally present within the universe. You fall off a cliff, it's gravity, it's gonna hurt you, right? So there's those rules, there's the property rules that we create as humankind. And so why then have rules by rulers? Their rules, I mean, some of them could be something we agree with, but if they're a ruler and they have authority, then they say that we're supposed to do whatever they're supposed to do because they're authority. Now, if there was just those rules and those rules align to the natural rules, morality, then they already exist. If they're already right, they already exist. So these are concepts which you may not understand, and this is why we have many books and materials about this. This is why I've wanted to write something more sensual, something more in touch with the senses for people, something more down to earth, more simple. But no matter how I look at it, I can write all the books in the world, and it still will not receive the attention in the world that it may deserve. Despite how important I might think it is, and despite how many failures or attempts I have of writing it myself as an individual who is simply looking upon the world. You know, I'm not proclaiming to be this or that or professional writer. I just write as my heart contends. So hopefully this message gets out to some people who care about others, and like I said, I'd be willing to talk with anyone about it. Of course, I am sunburnt a little bit, being in Florida and all that. But the Liberator 2 project is going well. Let me know what you think about the Liberator 2. I mean, I'm doing these videos and I'm writing these articles, and I feel the passion, I feel the energy in these people. And if you're one of those individuals sending us those articles, thank you. I appreciate you for just sending articles. Again, this is totally free and independent. I don't attain any money off of this. We're just doing this purely for education. And I hope to continue this as long as I can. I think there's endless content to talk about because, well, we're philosophers, essentially. We're looking at the world saying, hey, you can't change the world by writing on a piece of paper. You have to change the hearts and minds of people. And the only way you can get that to happen is if individuals listen and they are open and they care. And oftentimes we just have to find the people who are getting there on that process. There's a lot of people who want to remain ignorant, who don't ever want to listen to me, who will barely even click the video if they think it's political or this or that, and they have all these assumptions in their own head. And then they listen to me and they make more assumptions just to block out what could otherwise be life-changing if they just gave it the time and energy. In other news, have fun. I just did some Tai Chi, and it's funny because you hear when you study Taoism, and I have a whole video documentary about that in case you haven't watched it, but it's all about, hey, overcoming the enemy without using force. I mean, how symbolic. It's quite funny to me because this is like a very old philosophy that can benefit a lot of people, and that's a lot of what we're dealing with, is knowledge that a lot of people don't have. So I don't blame the world for their ignorance or wanting to remain ignorant, especially when there's so many distractions to keep them ignorant. And I don't mean to dwell upon the bad things, and I want to be positive and I want to have fun. So be sure to have fun, because you need to. Like, all the time, if I'm not on camera, I'm always having fun. I'm talking to people. Yeah, I'm partying sometimes because you have to, right? Obviously, that's not always the stuff that gets filmed. There's always a lot of things like that where people show themselves online versus real life. But I am myself with you guys. I just tend to be quite serious because we're always talking about all these serious topics. It's just the way things are. But it's also very important because we have to deal with a lot of real, impactful, real-world stuff. I mean, like, I did this video on George Floyd and what happened with all these police and police brutality, and it happens all the time. This is the real world. We have to face it. We can't just ignore it. I mean, it's not something I necessarily want to talk about, but it's not something I should just say, oh, well, I'm never going to talk about it. It's something that is worth being addressed just so people recognize their humanity. Because how many times will a police officer not treat you like a human? Or an army veteran or person? I mean, an individual who's fighting some person across the world they don't know. I mean, they're not treating humanity as humanity. And my whole goal is to keep that humanity. That's it. Nothing more. The question as to why I care is because I'm a sensitive person. And I care for others. And I was raised like that. And I'm not going to abandon that because of some job, position, some authority, some title. I'm going to remain true to myself, beyond all societal norms, beyond all expectation. I'm always going to stay true to myself because that's the truth. You shouldn't abandon it. Thank you very much for watching. And I know some people say, hey, Corey, you're inspiring, you're putting out videos and all that. I don't intend to be, but I'm glad if I am, and that's great. I want you to continue living your life. Don't get distracted. Don't get wrapped into fear. Don't watch my videos if it makes you more fearful. If you know what to do, you know the problem, you know the solution, do the work yourself. It's all good. Thank you very much for watching.